When I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Donnie and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
Get my head up.
I'm from South Carolina, so I just
Look at Donnie.
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Moss?
Oh, my heart.
Happy 20th anniversary.
My heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? Donnie.
Letting its glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, and dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting its glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh.
The doctor lived next door to the janitor to the reverend, and the lawyer. We were together. Now we're just so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Donnie, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it all and more.
First name's Donnie, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. Let me tell you. First of all, happy MLK Day to you. So I've shared with you on this show that something good to have in your life is some raw ginger and honey and lemon. And let me tell you something. You go sipping on it around nighttime. Come on, Pharaoh, you're making a mess. You will have one of the most restful nights of your life. To say the least. Nothing like that first sip. Okay, so today we celebrate our king, Dr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Got a couple of questions for you. I'm going to check to see how much of a fan of Dr. King that you really are. So I have a couple of questions I want to pose to you. What was Dr. King's original name? You can put the answer in the chat. What was Dr. King's original name? Who was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. originally? Dr. King, to me, was certainly the most powerful orator of my time on earth. I can't think of anyone who has commanded audiences with such a powerful voice, with such articulate speeches, the analogies he would use. I can't think of anyone who was better, not in my lifetime. I don't know. I've heard a lot of preachers over the years, but he wasn't just a preacher, he was a teacher. And not everybody at the time subscribed to his beliefs. After all, you're talking about somebody who came into the fold. I think Vernon Johns should be acknowledged as one of his mentors. So too was Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays. president of Morehouse College. So there were two people as I grew up, and nobody stuck. I was born in 65. I remember the riots of 68 vaguely. I do remember tanks coming up North Avenue when Dr. King was assassinated. I remember seeing people taking coat hangers with steel wool affixed to the end, lighting the steel wool on fire and then throwing it through the air. I remember that back during the 68 riots. I don't know what people got out of it. I know some houses probably caught on fire. But between Dr. King and that guy right there, Malcolm X, that's my new book. I'm going to reread this. I read this in 3 days when I first got it. But Malcolm X and Dr. King inspired me personally more than anybody else. Was Dr. King's dream a reality? It can be. But something happened in between 68 and 2023 with the rise of the Black Power movement and the assassination of Dr. King. Just like today, a new generation came into the mix and they weren't hearing anything about nonviolence. They were taken to the streets. And they had no problem picking up weaponry. This type of Black unity, symbolized by the afro, the bush, changed America. We're giving them the kumbaya approach. Like, go on now, stop it. But I think about those leaders walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. All of those people to have the likes of Wallace, Bull Connor, wait on them with shotguns and dogs, waiting on our ancestors who had come together in peaceable protests. We cannot forget those very dark days, but yet transformative days, because finally, because of television, the world was seeing what America's curtain had been hiding. America had up a curtain too. America likes to point finger at Russia. But every time you point a finger, there are three coming back at you. Look at China. Look at their human rights violations. Look at Iran. Look at how they treat women. Well, look at America, the beautiful. I was speaking with an elder yesterday. A couple of elders. One was Conan's mom. I'm working on my third book. Hooray! Conan, the DJ, his mother, Miss Vesta, she grew up in Washington, D.C. She was 84 years old. And it was so much fun, entertaining, exciting even, to hear this 84-year-old queen's reflections on what her parents taught her right there in Washington, D.C. She said her life revolved around going to school, going to church, and going to the YWCA, where she played basketball. Yes, you heard it right here on the show. Conan learned to play basketball from his mom, who played for Dunbar in D.C. Dunbar in D.C. was around before Dunbar in Baltimore. And yes, they know about basketball. And as we were talking, I was just warmed to hear how she grew up and what things were important to her and her family. There you go, LinkedIn user. There you go. That was his name. That was his name. How many of y'all knew that Dr. King's original name was Michael? And he changed his name, is my understanding. But those two gentlemen, I digress, Dr. King and Malcolm X, for me growing up, everybody wanted to talk about Dr. King. And you would hear Malcolm X's name. But for me, those were two giants that we could read about, that people still remembered. Brother Bay, Brother Ellsworth Bay here in Baltimore, told me that he met Malcolm X. I was so envious of that moment, in a good way. Tell me more. Tell me more. How was he? How was Malcolm? These men shaped America. They shaped Black America. They grabbed the bull by the horns and said, "You are going to listen to me." And although both were shot down, they both represented the best and brightest of our people, that despite 400, 500 years of oppression, these two men, Martin and Malcolm, represented our best. They could articulate, they could think. I imagine they put fear in the hearts of racists. But I imagine they evoked love in the hearts of God's children. But on Dr. King's tip, not everybody was with Dr. King, especially church people. They didn't all embrace Dr. King. I don't want y'all to get that twisted. You see everybody running out here to a parade today. They weren't all embracing Dr. King. No, they were not. They had no rap for him. He was a troublemaker. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the one all of these people are running for a parade, if he were alive, they would not be running towards this parade. Because that's how we can get sometimes. I don't like the concept of crab in the bush. We had some self-hate. And that's what we battle today, some serious self-hate. And that comes from the plantation. It comes from slavery. Taught to us by slave owners. People try to take our DNA and change us into something that we're not. People took our humanity and trashed it, who raped our great-great-grandmothers. And even though our great-great-grandmothers breastfed their children, they still denied our great-great-grandmothers something to eat, somewhere to drink. The movie Jane Pittman comes to mind. If you've never seen it, please check it out. You weren't going to break Jane Pittman's spirit, no matter how ugly you get. I never understood how people who are going to eat your food are going to try to be racist to you. That is the dumbest, most asinine thing I've ever heard. My great-great-grandmother, your great-great-grandmother feeding theirs, feeding them food, feeding their children, putting their breasts in their mouths. And you gonna talk smack to us? But you know, son, we can poison you at any time. long before you was thinking about anthrax. How stupid an idiot does that? I've never gotten that. You got these people fixing your food, and you gonna talk snake, you gonna hit them with a whip. You know where the term cracker comes from, don't you? And we ain't talking about good white people. I do believe, however, like Edmund Burke, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And that's why I write about John Brown, my favorite white person in history, in my book, because not all black people your friend, not all white people your enemy. There were some white people who helped us as decent people should. And that is America's story. Dr. King came with the message of peace, and I have a dream about the mountaintop, about an America where everybody could live together as brothers and sisters. But as this show comes on, there's a little clip where Dr. Michael Zollicoffer, MD, speaks about black people who don't like poor black people. There are white people who don't like poor white people. But even the poorest of white people, even the ones in my alley eating off of the ground and shooting dope, have the audacity to utter the words nigger when they are called out and told to leave the alley. I know because it happened to me. And I did not react violently. I said, you wait right here. And I came in the house and laid down. I'm not losing my house over some idiot trying to play me out of position. Not happening, boo-boo. You still gonna get out that alley. And you look nasty eating off the ground. Now, we know who the nigger is. See, when you know your history, when you know about the Moors and the 800 years that they ruled Spain and Portugal and taught the people how to bathe, you know who the real nigger is. And when you know the truth, you don't have to respond to chicanery, foolishness, idiocy. It's simply unnecessary. I know my people's history. I know about queens and the kings, like Mansa Musa, the richest king who ever lived, who came out of Mali. And so when you know about the richest king who ever lived, whose gold transformed the entire of North Africa, including what is known today as the Middle East, which is no more than North Africa, when you know the story of the walls of Karnak, as articulated by Ashra Kwesi, who does the tours in Egypt. When you know who your people were, when you know about the pharaohs, long before Ptolemy, the white pharaoh, when you know that the people in the pyramids and the graphics of those jet black people, I'm talking about the original graphics, hieroglyphs, those people were jet black. And over time, they got lighter and lighter and lighter. Like coffee when you add in some cream. We know the original. When you know who you are, you don't have to respond to foolishness. But this country didn't embrace Dr. King, and many church people did not embrace Dr. King. My favorite part of the 60s was when Dr. King and Malcolm X met. I think that was just for me, huge fan of Malcolm X, read the book in 3 days, huge fan of Dr. King. Who couldn't be a fan of Dr. King? I have a dream. A dream deeply rooted in the American dream. Y'all remember the speech and the way he would bellow his sound and mine eyes have seen the glory, and the way he would just rock them all. No one has touched that oratory. No one. No one. because it was natural, it was organic, it was necessary. As this country watched Dr. King get shot down, this country assassinated, the American government assassinated Dr. Martin Luther King because he was getting too powerful. They assassinated him because they were afraid. They're still afraid. That's why George Floyd got killed, because too many white males are afraid of their own shadow. And if you're so afraid, then change your behavior. But some people can't change their behavior. Some people are still stuck in a Cro-Magnon state of being and can never join the human race. When you know your history, you know that the oldest man on earth comes out of Africa. And when you know that the oldest man on earth comes out of Africa and the oldest DNA on earth comes out of Namibia in southern Africa, you understand why some people are so hateful and ugly today. Because the more they come to the truth, the light, the more blinded they are by not just the black man, but even more so by the black woman. There was a Dr. King, but there was also a Coretta Scott King, who I had the pleasure of meeting during my tenure at Morehouse College. There was an El Haj Malik El Shabazz, but there was also a Betty Shabazz who held it down for him. I've never met his daughters. I think Alexis has met one of his daughters, but Atala, she's always reminded me of her dad, Atala Shabazz. So as we reflect on this day, on the messages and the words and the spirit of Dr. King, as our politicians run down to the poorly planned Martin Luther King Day parade. See, when you went to Morehouse and when you grew up doing speeches and show and tell on Dr. King, and when you watch his birthday become a national holiday, when you watch Stevie Wonder, there's a question for you. What is Stevie Wonder's original name? It's not Stevie. I remember that song becoming the song, Happy Birthday to You. Remember the King birthday finally becoming a national holiday. You could see the look on the faces of the races. Their faces would cringe. But they had to bow down to the light because the light was that bright. Dr. King's star was that bright. Made people cry. People falling out. People were overwhelmed that they actually heard, mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He said he'd been to the mountaintop and he's seen the promised land. Is this the promised land? Is the promised land merely black political progress? If our economic progress is the same as it was 40 years ago, we got more back at the end of the civil rights movement. That's when we got movement, when they start seeing them AKs and them shotguns coming out. Okay, maybe AKs is going a bit far. But when they started, black people weren't afraid of them. When they started meeting us on equal footing, made them back up. You know, Tulsa, what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma was pure cowardice. It's easy to go in with it's 20 of y'all and one of them. Go head up. That's where I come from. Let them fight head up. Stay out of it. Let them fight head up. And there's always a different story when you don't have somebody to bank this person. Then you see the coward that you really live beside. I watch all of these American movies. I love my movies, but I'm very aware of D.W. Griffith and the birth of a nation and the tainted taste that it leaves on our mouths. D.W. Griffith wants to paint black people, going back to 1970, as big-lipped, watermelon eating, bright-eyed, like we've seen a ghost or something. They took this whole caricature of Black America and they painted it and they cast it out. And this is what the black person. And then when people came to the White House, they show them the D.W. Griffith movie, The Birth of a Nation, making black people look secondary, subservient. Son, my ancestors built pyramids, built kingdoms, built empires. We taught you civilization. We even taught you how to bathe. But in his twisted mind, the baby of humanity, because if I'm the oldest, if I can trace my DNA back to Namibia, then we know that the Asians were the next evolution of humanity, and that the Europeans were the last. And this is not to knock white people, it was just to help to explain the history. That's like your child trying to tell your great-great-grandmother what the dilly is, yo. And how absurd is that? So as this baby of humanity is now more organized, more disciplined, has better weaponry, they send forth a Christopher Columbus to discover something, only to discover that he didn't discover anything. And that's been the running thing with this whole part of life in the 20th century, 21st century. There are those who think this picture that's painted of Black America, 50% of the murders are Black people, 50% of the murderers are Black people, 50% of the inmates are Black people. I'll never forget a white girl I met over at Johns Hopkins. She said most of the crime committed in America is done by white people. How ignorant of her. How ignorant of her. So it's my fault. That's America. We want to blame somebody. It's Black people's fault. It's our fault that America is full of crime. We get back to them Black politicians. We don't care. This progress was never about you. And that's what they told me down on the Eastern Shore about Barack Obama. This progress was never about Barack Obama. It was supposed to be about us. All of those farmers who worked for years, all of those small businesses that worked, all of the reparations that were never paid, all of the money in the Freedmen's Bank that was stolen by white people. Then they bring Frederick Douglass in at the end after it was a fiasco. Our Black politicians get lost. They get lost in the sauce, thinking it's all about them and their glory moment. And their head is up in there. You ain't take no bullet. And if you ain't serving the people, then you ain't really no good to the people. We see your tweets. We see your IGs. We see you phony. Because if you truly love the people, then you would serve the people. But who you really serving is yourself. And sometimes you even come back for a round two of service because you like that high so much. But look at the people. Look at East Baltimore. Look at West Baltimore. Where's the relief money from Obama? Where's the ARPA money? Where's the American Recovery money? I don't see it in East Baltimore. I don't see it in West Baltimore. Where the hell is the money? Where's the money from Freddie Gray? $21 million was collected. I ain't see no money. Did you see some money? It wasn't no money. It wasn't really $21 million. Where's the money? But these people, they come together for a damn parade that you better have. You tried to cancel, but you better have it. Can't miss the parade 3 years in a row. You already took red, black, and green out of AFRAM. How watered down a Negro are we going to be in 2023? How watered down a Negro are we going to be? Are we really going to fight for black people? We've been talking about minority business enterprise since we came on the scene. The needle is not moving at all. Who's getting all of the business in MBE are white women. They're getting 95% of the contracts. Blacks, Hispanics, and Latinos, blacks, Hispanics, and Asians getting like 2% in a 30% black state. It's a game. And it's one I don't play. I refuse to play that game. Well, you missing out on contracts. No, I'm not. I'm going to get mine a different way. But I'm not playing that minority because I ain't no damn minority. And you ain't no damn minority either. Stop telling yourself you want, because maybe if you start thinking like the victor that you are and the king that you are and the queen that God made you to be, then you stop accepting less. That's what we're doing in America. We're settling. We get a house out in Owens Mills and a nice mortgage, got that 500 Benz, and we made it. No, you didn't. You ain't make it. You're just as much a slave as some of your ancestors because you're not free in your mind. You can't think for yourself. You can't build your own community because you're busy running Owens Mills. You say the hell with Carlton Avenue when you could have got 3 houses on Carlton Avenue for what you paid for that prefabbed house out Owens Mills. You didn't even take the workers any cups of water. So they gave you a raggedy job. I've been to some of them houses in Owens Mills. I do like the bunny rabbit, the deer, and the foxes. It's better than triggers, rats, and roaches. But you catch the drift. I digress. Today we're celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King. A dear friend of mine who's gone now, Frank Drumright. He was a Morehouse man. He made me memorize some words of Dr. King. I thought he had lost his mind when he asked me to memorize these words. Frank Drumright Jr., Union Baptist Church. That was a church where the goon squad leader was Reverend Vernon Dobson. They don't make men like Vernon Dobson anymore. They don't make men like Harvey Johnson anymore. These were people who were more than just preachers. They were involved in the community. They could walk down the street and people knew their name. They could walk down the street and know who needed to get help with their rent. Might have needed something to keep their house warm, who needed some food. And that's what Miss Vesta was talking about yesterday, Conan's mom. She's talking about a day and time when we looked out for each other, when we sent a plate over to this elder. And Miss Vesta had to take this plate over to her elder every day and had to play cards with the lady. And her mother explained to her that this woman educated all of us. She was our teacher. So you will not leave her over there abandoned. But you know how we do now. We can't wait to stick mom in a nursing home. Can't wait to stick your daddy in a nursing home. Because we got to go shopping. We got to go buy this new brand. And I saw the new brand. Was it Baguli or something? Y'all know what I'm talking about. I was not impressed. After going to Ethiopia and seeing the Coach bags come from them little goats in Ethiopia, you shouldn't be impressed either. We pay exorbitant amounts of money for something that costs about $8. I'm like, damn, we can buy our own goats and make our own damn bags. And that's what we've become. And that's why they killed Dr. King, because they'd much rather have us being consumers than producers and manufacturers. We've become great consumers. That's what they call us, super users. Look it up. Try Google. What is a super user? It's us, it's black people. We even spend money on St. Patrick's Day when they ain't got a damn thing to do with black people. But we talking about we Irish. No, you're not. And that's why I never pledged. I couldn't fix my mind, my lips, my heart, my soul. No disrespect to you Kappas, Alphas, and Omegas. I just couldn't tell myself that I'm Greek because I know damn well I'm African. I'm a black man. Plus, I didn't have $1,000 to pay for them damn fraternity dues. And I wasn't paying you because I like the Omegas early on. That's why I saw them copping as a teenager of Mondawmin. If anything, I would have pledged Omega, but they were some big Van Diesel cockstrong dudes. They wasn't going to be beating me up. And then I'm going to pay you and you're going to beat me up and I'm going to call you my brother. Nah, it don't work like that. I'm from Baltimore, Slim. I might mess around and meet you when you ain't looking. Split your wig. That's what we taught in Baltimore. You hit me, I'm going to hit you back harder. Kind of like Tank Davis. Did you see his punches? But I digress. We got to get back to loving each other. I think if Dr. King were alive today, he would want us to love each other. He would want us to be kind to each other, to spend money with each other. That's what I got out of Dr. King and going to Morehouse, that I had to be my best. I had to be the best me that I could ever be. Yeah, Stephen Moss, that is the name of Stevie Wonder. Dr. King and Malcolm X. I celebrate them both. Malcolm X should have a holiday too. But let me give you the quote by Dr. King that Frank Drumright had me memorize. He said, the richer we become materially, the poorer we become morally and spiritually. I'm going to say that again. The richer we become materially, the poorer we become morally and spiritually. We have learned to fly the air like birds and swim the seas like fish. But we have not learned the simple art of living together as brothers and sisters. We are as childish as those that we despise. We are as childish as those who have oppressed us. Maybe after being in this country 400 or 500 years, we've forgotten who we are. We have forgotten our birthright. We have forgotten how God has anointed us and set us apart. And people talk about religion. We are the original Hebrews. We are. Always have been. But until we know whom we are, that we are the children of God, the more we take on the ways of the world and forget the lessons like be in the world but not of the world, then the longer it's going to take us and this country to reach where it's supposed to be. Everybody in the world wants to come to America, but as soon as they get here, including our brothers and sisters from India, they walking down the street and they see a black man, they think the black man gonna go wrong. Wrong one. You got the wrong memo. Nobody wants to respect the black man, the black woman. You're gonna respect me. When I walk down that harbor, I'm not moving no damn where. You move. That's who I am. And I teach my daughter the same thing. She was a little girl, thought I was buck wild crazy out of my mind. We walking through here and we not walking nowhere else. We not moving. Don't you dare move. Walk down the harbor, people, some white people, some other people think you supposed to walk around them like you are less than. Treat people like they treat you. They got that memo that day. Wrong one. Slavery's over. Makes you think you better than somebody else, especially the people who fed you, breastfed you, and you have no respect. So we're going to teach you some respect. But first, we got to have respect amongst ourselves. We out here killing each other like it's going out of style. Just horrible. Over what? Some dope? Some poison? Poison that's destroyed your community? You own the block. You ain't got no deed on this block. You don't own nothing. You own a jail cell for 30 years. Bye-bye. Maybe you'll meet a Nelson Mandela type while you're locked up. A real political prisoner. Locked up 27 years and still didn't come out bitter. Went on to become the first black president of South Africa. How ludicrous is that? Our first black president in a black land. Because the Dutch, the Boers, the British, Cecil Rhodes, the Rhodes Scholars, they went down to South Africa and took all of those people's land. Made the black people live on a shanty. You remember the apartheid movement? Kwesi actually got arrested during that. Free South Africa. Y'all forgot about that, huh? They tell you all about Ukraine. They tell you about Belgium. Oh, feel sorry for Belgium. Oh, feel sorry for Ukraine. What about the 54 African nations? Nigeria, Togo, Libya, Namibia, Botswana, Tanzania, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana. What about your countries? What about Muammar Gaddafi, who was killed? We killed the leader of a sovereign nation. Under Barack Obama, we killed the black president. We killed Muammar Gaddafi. You can't forget these things. You can't act like they didn't happen because that's who we are. That's who we've become. And we got to get back on point and know who we are. Because as we know who we are, the less we'll subscribe to stupid stuff. After they killed Gaddafi, then the whole of North Africa was unruly. They had no reason to kill Muammar Gaddafi. Should have killed Donald Trump. That's the asshole. Gaddafi held it together. You killed an African leader because he's trying to unify Africa into one currency. So then you really got to wonder, what are we over here supporting? Do we support real black empowerment? Because every time I turn around, the CIA is undermining the country in Africa or Haiti. So we celebrate Dr. King today. Maybe we can do some reading and read up on people like Vernon Johns, people who inspired Dr. King, or Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays. Or maybe you go out and see the parade. I understand that Anthony Brown, Westmore, Kwesi Mfume, Brandon Scott will be there. I'm looking at the city of Baltimore. I'm looking at the state of Maryland. I'm wondering if the needle is going to be pushed for black business. Because that minority thing started off being about us, but then it got quickly changed. Now white women are getting all the contracts. I look at Baltimore City Public Schools, no Fortune 500s in Baltimore. Nobody wants to come to a city where you have illiterate people. People who don't have a handwriting. People who don't even have a handwriting. And that's what other cities look at Baltimore and they point the finger. Y'all dumb. New Yorkers talk about Baltimore. New Yorkers think that Baltimore is illiterate. My name is Donnie Glover. Happy Dr. King Day. Use your brain for something other than a hat rack. Dr. King was about peace. But Malcolm X picked up that AK. The Black Panthers picked up a weapon. These younger people today, they ain't singing that kumbaya. They're on the internet just like everybody else. We want a peaceful world, but some people don't, a bully don't learn until he get hit upside the head with an alley apple. Look at George Floyd. Them cowards. His name, Derek Shaven, kneeled on it and just looked at you. That's America. That's the heart and soul of America, some ignorant ass white boy who's a coward, who wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight. But he had to fight now. He had to choose. Now that he over that jail, he had to choose. You had to choose some time ago. I doubt if he went with the Bloods, the Crips, or the BGF. Pretty certain he would go with something like the Aryan Nation. But I know some black person punched him in his damn mouth by now. My name's Donnie Glover. I do believe in peace, but in times of peace, prepare for war. This is America. It's been a war since we got here. People don't play right. Try to be nice to people. A lot of people take your kindness for a weakness. We all need to look in the mirror and see what we can do to make this country better. Sitting on the sideline is not good enough. Edmund Burke said it. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. You got to stop treating black people so ugly. You promised money from the Freedmen's Bank to reparations to the ARPA money and the money from Freddie Gray, $21 million. Only thing we've seen in West Baltimore is a renovated police station and a new funeral home. Are you serious? Our elders, what's that man named? Sam Daniels. He'd be ashamed of Baltimore today. What have we built? We haven't built a new wreck in 50 years. Brandon did put a wreck down there in Cherry Hill. What about East Baltimore? What about West Baltimore, where all the murders at? Why don't you do some investing in these very neighborhoods where the murders are? Because we treat each other worse than Whitey could ever do it. Have a good day.